I struggle to confess, and I can't seem to believe I'm forgiven. I'm sorry, Dad. Welcome. Hi, my name is Ted Rosenblatt, and I'm here with my father, Dr. Rod Rosenblatt, and this is Talks with Dad Rod. You have modeled things for me, and it's hard for me to believe sometimes. In the face of my sin, there are sins that are conscious, there are sins that are unconscious, and there are things in Scripture that reveal these things to me, and I always feel like a failure. It never feels like enough. It's amazing how much when I hear things in church, or if I don't hear them in church, if somebody else, let's say I listen to a podcast or something, and it seems like it's really good news, and I can't believe it's enough for my sin. Mine weighs on me, and it doesn't get taken away.
First of all, if you're going to attend church, you've got to attend one where the forgiveness of sin is central, and he's saying it out loud. If he isn't talking about sin and the forgiveness of sin, find a new church. And a lot of this is a result of how we grew up, particularly fathers. Fathers are not important because they have bigger biceps and are physically stronger and able to carry out the punishments better than a mother. That isn't it at all. The thing that a father is called upon is to, when there is no hope at all, to offer some, genuinely. People have heard me tell the story about when I crashed in my Buick that I was driving at the time I was a student, and I, with 5 other drunk fraternity members, pulled out slowly in a blind corner and got clipped by a 57 Ford. He lost his headlight rim and my Buick collapsed on the street, and I had to phone my father and say, I just crashed the car. And of course, he, the father, and surgeon, doctor, said, where are you and are you okay? I said, yeah, we're all okay. We're drunk, but we're all okay. So he came, he said, don't leave. I'll have the car picked up. I'll be right over to get you. I happen to be close to our house. So he came and picked up 5 drunk kids, drove them all home, drove me home finally, and first thing he said when he came into the house was, tell my mother to leave us alone. First thing, wise. So we were sitting in a little room off the living room, and he had his arm around my shoulder, and I was crying, thinking he could ground me forever for this one. And he looked at me and said, I think what you need is a new car. Go looking, see what you can find, and we'll take a look and get you a new car. That was definitive in my whole childhood. And every time it rains, it's always, when I hear the rain on the window and the rain on the roof, it always reminds me of him because I grew up where it rained a lot. And it hits me again and again. He spent all this time giving gifts to me when I didn't deserve them. He called me one time when I was at the fraternity house at the University of Washington. He said, did you tell me one time that you'd like to have a sports car? I said, Dad, I'd love a sports car. He said, well, I have a patient. I just saved his life in surgery. He just bought one. He hates it, wants to dump it. I think you need it. It was a black MGA convertible out of nowhere. And he figured I needed that. Over and over and over and over again. I'd be driving back to UW, and he'd say, how are you doing for money? I'd say, I'm doing okay. He said, no, you're not. I'll put some in this week. You never want to be short of money when you're in college and out of touch, somewhere else. I'll put some more in. That was typical. Over and over and over and over again.
And I've made the case recently about how I posted something for Father's Day, and I said it's paradoxical that when a father is graceful, and I say this, and one of the reasons we focus on this is to more deeply model what we implicitly do here on a regular basis, because so many of our audience members don't have such a model. They haven't had this sort of experience. When you have a father who's graceful and understanding when you are already crushed, it doesn't have to be God's law. It can be the obvious failures right now in this kingdom, in this world. We just go through, and whether it's crashing a car or doing something that gets you fired or whatever. And so the confession I lead with is sort of a catch-all. But it ties into when you have a good father, the whisper of the law is much more powerful. You don't need thunderous law at that point. Your desire, it causes, in my experience, this upwelling of desire to make the Father proud of you. And growing up, you have your stories and I have mine. I've done plenty of failures at that. And part of it was growing up and being angry with the church for any number of reasons. You know, it was tied.
Join the club.
It was, I went through my rebellion and freaked out one of our, soon to be forever friends who had come in and found me. And I was talking about, wanting to go and punch Jesus in the nose. I was so mad at whatever my struggles were. And he was just, dude, you're going to hell. And, that I had to get through that phase to get to the place where you were going to church all the time. And I just was watching you, and I was staying home. I wasn't going to church, and off you went, and you never rode me about it. You never said it. I don't know how you did that. And I would say, you going to church? And you'd say, yep. And I'd say, see ya. And I've been thinking about this recently because we just lost the pastor that was the one that you were seeing. And there was some point in there without me being able to understand why, I just decided maybe I'll go with you this time. And that was the pastor we just lost. So this is kind of tied into that. This is very emotional for us because we had a Pastor Ron Hodel who was tapped in with us here at 1517. Everybody says the same thing. There's something about that guy. Never missed. Never. I mean, his screw-ups were gospel-filled, I can tell stories about how, for whatever reason, which I actually secretly took great glee in, although he was obnoxious about it, he would call me out from the pulpit and go, yeah, Ted, that means, Ted, you can't blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? And there I am in this big mass of people, and he'd call me out from the pulpit, and I'm like, what? And love that guy. And for him to just drop dead out of the clear blue has really hurt a lot of us deeply. So that this is sort of a nod toward that. But the spirit of what I'm talking about here and bringing up here is when you have a father who is always there for you and always making sure you're okay, even though you have just screwed up, even though there is no defense.
Yeah.
When I was forging my signatures on the deficiency notices in junior high, and I thought I was pretty good at it. I thought I had it well licked, and they still called you, and you had every right to just come down on me. And I remember I was just terrified because they called me in to the school. The teacher called me aside and said, did your father sign this? And I said, yes, because you got to back up the lie. You got to back up the lie. You got to just be like 100%. You can't fail. And I didn't know what I was going to run into when I came home. And this is just the lightest version. This is just one tiny version of this whole thing, and I came home and I just came in and you just were kind of smirking at me, and I just was like, crap. I was just so hoping that I had been so good at the fake signature thing that you didn't hear about it. And then they called you, and you had that look on your face, and I was just like, dang it. I thought I was better than that. I thought I was pretty slick. And you still didn't ride me. You just wanted to know what was going on. That was your question, what's going on over there? And it was simple. I couldn't win. I was just getting bad grades. I was getting D's and C's, and no matter whether I put my work into my papers, whether I was, homework, whatever, no matter what I did, I couldn't win. And I didn't know how to relay that to you because it just came across to me as an excuse, for a failure. So how do you, but it was never, that wasn't the issue. And you were a teacher, so you wanted to look at my work. You wanted to see the assignments I was being given, and then you came in there and were saying, well, it shouldn't be this way. You were able to analyze it and say, from the teacher's perspective, this could be done better. And you gave me a help. We'll talk about the full story on that in another episode because we're going to run out of time here. But that was just a simple. I've got a lot more stories that I can tell, and I'll probably do them in due time. But it was hard for me. It was hard for me to fail you because you were graceful with me.
One of the reasons to attend one of those rare churches where the pastor preaches the gospel every single Sunday, and your opening reading of the guy who's saying, I can't believe this. One of the reasons to attend one of those few churches where the pastor preaches the gospel is that when you're under that, God gives you the belief, gives you the decision, gives you what he's calling for, and only in a church where the gospel is preached can you find that. He gives you the decision.
Even when I feel like I'm not.
Yep.
I just feel like I can't. I feel like I'm not.
And if you're in a church where the pastor doesn't preach the gospel, you're wasting your time.
This is what we are supposed to be receiving. This is why we do what we do. This relationship between the Father and the Son forms so much more than just the simple conversations and the simple things and dailies in the house and growing up and then spending time with each other as we've gotten older. Or, as I've mentioned in online, for those who have not had a father like you, and so they adopted you before you adopted them. I've watched so many people, men and women, just like this thing. They come over to your house and they just like this thing. It was unlike anything they'd experienced. And what you were able to do implicitly with them, being okay with them all the time, changed their perspective on who God is. And we've talked about this a lot of times, how the good Father reflects God in a certain way so that it opens up someone's mind that if there is a God, what if he were good like this? But much better. But I still struggle. This is the problem. Even knowing that, even having a dad like you and growing up and doing this sort of confession and this kind of conversation for our audience, which I'm hoping I would actually like to do a little of this hopefully in our coming event in October.
Literary recommendation. MacDonald, who greatly affected C.S. Lewis, and he said so, MacDonald's poem, To My Father. Find it, take a look at it.
What's his first name?
George MacDonald, Scottish fiction writer. Great influence on Lewis. Yeah, To My Father.
There's a lot here, so we can only do so much, and this is very long for our time, but I've been wanting to do this. And though this is not in sequence, I think we'll go ahead and launch this right here after Father's Day, because we just had Father's Day here in 2022, and trying to crack a window for people who are on the outside who might not have these sort of experiences. If you haven't had these kind of experiences growing up, you might see what the dynamic looks like, feels like, sounds like, so forth. Hope you like this. Hope this one's different, and we want to do this a few times. Like I said, I'd like to see this. I'd like to possibly do some of this at our upcoming event. Here We Still Stand. If you aren't signed up for that, please do. We sell out, and we try to be very generous with what you get for the price. If you aren't signed up for that, you absolutely should. You will get to see us in person. So I hope this is fun for you, helpful for you, comforting to you, feeds your faith in some way. Come to 1517.org for more. I'll see you on social media, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us on Talks with Dad Rod, part of the 1517 Podcast Network. This podcast and all 1517's content is made possible through financial support by listeners just like you. Please visit 1517.org for more. And please consider clicking on the donate button and making a recurring or one-time contribution to help us share this good news in a world which so desperately needs it.